So, this may be a ramble of sorts. Um, I'm not quite sure um, where this is gonna go, but I just kind of I have something I want to discuss, and like I said, I'm just not sure what direction I'm gonna go with it. I'm just gonna kind of talk and let it just be what it is. So, I just finished watching that Gilbert Arenas interview he did with Dwight Howard, and I'm not sure if this is a older one or if this is something within like the last week. Um, but here's the thing, they were talking about Stan Van Gundy because if you guys don't know, they both played under Stan in Orlando, right? And basically, to sum it up, because it wasn't that long of a clip, it you could go search for it on YouTube. It was like the one on YouTube was almost 4 minutes. The one on Twitter was like a little over 2 minutes. And basically, long story short, they summed it up by saying, "Hey, he's a great X's and O's coach." Which one of the things that I defended on stand about on this channel was his ability to coach the game of basketball. He's a good coach, you know, and I know a lot of people don't like that because it's so anti-Stan. But even the players are admitting and have said it before. He's a great X's and O's coach. He knows the game of basketball. One of the things I said about Stan is I could listen to him talk about basketball all day because he knows his shit. But that's one piece of it. You know what I'm saying? The thing is that, like they said, it's a good cop, bad cop thing. He's so hard and so hard pressed on players and people in general. So it's like basically Dwight was saying he never got an opportunity to be a leader because what it was is Stan was always so hard and chewing into people so rough. It was like he kind of felt like it was up to him to kind of be like the good cop and kind of cheer everybody up and make it tolerable. And Gilbert Arenas said the same thing. He was like, you know, players usually hold themselves accountable, but Stan typically tries to overexert, you know, his authority, and he does it in a way that turns people off. And so, it was like Dwight would have to come behind and be like, "Hey man, you're doing good. Keep your head up. Blah blah blah." And so, because of him lightening the mood, it would come off like he's this terrible guy, this terrible leader. When in actuality, he's just trying to balance out what Stan is. I don't know if the Pelicans locker room had a guy like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they had a Dwight Howard or Gilbert Arenas, someone who's just like a mad jokester who would lighten the mood when dealing with Stan. But, that's very telling because we saw a lot of this play out on the court. Now, there was I remember talking about some of his ATOs this year, and they were brilliant. And even Gilbert Arenas mentioned how good the ATOs were. Out of timeout plays is what that stands for. And so, that's a thing. That's like, again, to the point that he's a great X's and O's coach and he knows the game of basketball. But the problem is the players aren't going to want to play for him, right? And, they were saying, not them, Gilbert, but, people were talking about last year on Twitter. It's like, okay, well, they had Gentry and they didn't want to play for him. I disagree. I think in the bubble they just chalked it up as a lost cause, but I think they genuinely love Gentry. Like he was that, like they love playing for Gentry, and sorry about that, I had to cough. But they seem like they played for Gentry last year. Like for instance, when they went in and played the Utah Jazz, and in the late game, Bi hit that shot, that crazy shot that Lonzo got to him, and then it was like, the entire arena erupted. Like they played for him. You know what I'm saying? They had moments all throughout the year where it seemed like they were playing for Gentry. So I don't think they didn't want to play for him. But, it with all this stuff coming out and the news about Zion, to me it's kind of like, okay, what's next? And I know there's some people's like, well, players are spoiled, blah, blah, blah. Look, I've always been a proponent of versatility, and along with versatility, I'm also a proponent of synergy. And what I mean by that is the ability for things to seamlessly work or interweave together as one. I think that also includes the coach and the coaching staff. It doesn't matter. Okay, for instance, let's talk about the Warriors real quick. There's, obviously there's the three-headed monster that was Steph, Clay, and Dre. And then, in the peak, you had Iggy and, maybe Durant or whatever. Or Harrison Barnes if you're talking about before Durant. But Steve Kerr had to go into that situation and connect with those guys and build something with them that worked. And so they all respect Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr respects them. And they will play for Steve Kerr, but they also built that trust and development with Steve Kerr. And there's times where Steve Kerr, and there's one where it's famous where Steph does all his dribble, 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 and he throws up a shot. He's like, no, no, no. And then Steph gets it, and he just walks away with his head. It's like, he's like, this motherfucking nigga here, goddamn. This motherfucker's too damn good. But I can't tell him that because he fucked up. That's how Steve Kerr is. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you got to let the players go out and do their thing and be themselves. And at the same time, you got to kind of, hedge the discipline in there too. You can't just let them go too far. But, there was even games where he sat back and he let the players coach. Like some of the guys who weren't getting playing time in that game, like he'll let or were out for injuries. Okay, Iggy, you coach. Okay, Dre, you coach. He got them involved, and he was like, it's not to be disrespectful, but over a long grind of a season, and you used to get into the playoffs and shit, you got to find ways to keep them engaged, and they enjoyed that shit. So with the Pelicans, first of all, let's start here. We know they have the duo, but do they have the trio? Lonzo is the third piece. Most of us, if you follow me, you probably follow in agreement that Lonzo is that third guy. But if they don't bring him back, that's one less person to include that you're dealing with. And so if you're going to find a coach, is the coach going to be able to connect with those two and possibly Lonzo? Is he going to trust those guys to go out there and do what they need to do? Is he going to build that rapport with them? All of that stuff is going to matter when we're talking about building a championship team or a winner, or having that locker room, that team thing. One of my videos I made, where's your pride, Pelicans? It makes so much sense now that we know what's going on based on this last couple days and week or so where all this information is coming out. Like, all of this stuff is starting to make so much sense. And I said, where's your pride? They didn't have pride because they didn't care. It makes so much sense now. They need a coach where their game will have to have pride in it. And they will go out there with intentionality and effort and energy and play to win. That's one of the biggest issues. I don't know if they're going to trust the front office to put that around them, but you got to kind of build whatever you got with what you got. You know what I'm saying? So, what's next? They're talking about Zion's camp wants Teresa Witherspoon for good reason. I'm not going to get into Teaspoon, but that's who they're rallying for. And let me say this. If Zion's camp is saying this, I'm probably sure Lonzo agrees, or they talked about it, or B.I. agrees, and they've talked about it. So I don't think this has anything to do with just Zion. I think in a mass, this probably is multiple guys on that team. Now, Josh Hart says he wants to change the scenery. I'm going to take his word for it. He wants to change the scenery. I don't think a change of them is going to do him any good. He shares the same agent with JJ, and they, rubbed him the wrong way. So probably going to probably already rubbed Josh Hart the wrong way to the point where he don't want to be back. Whether Griff's there or not, whether Stan's there or not. So the Pelicans have a serious issue. Now, there's Rick Carlisle, the coach for my team, the Mavs, had been a coach for a while there. He stepped away. He's going to be highly sought after. What's the guy's name in Atlanta? I believe his name is Nate McMillan. They're on the verge of the Eastern Conference Finals after not making the playoffs for a couple years. And to our knowledge, he doesn't have a contract yet. So the price of the brick just went up. If you had already re-signed him, and maybe, who knows, we don't know for sure. He may already be signed to a contract that just hasn't been released to the public yet. But we don't know that. So if he has not been re-signed, and you see the work he just did with them, Nate McMillan would be a very good coach and a target for a lot of teams out here that needs a coach. Boston, Portland, New Orleans even. I don't know if he would necessarily fit for Luka. I ain't gonna get into that. But, you know, there's so much stuff to be thought about here. The NBA Combine for the draft, I think, is next week. The draft itself is next month. You know, Summer League will be the month after that. Training camps will start the month after that because we're in September. Regular season starts next month, you know, with preseason also in October. You see what I'm saying? There's not a lot of time here. And the third leading scorer on the team is an unrestricted free agent. That's Lonzo Ball. There's reports that came out that says New York and him have mutual interest. It seems like Zach LaVine is on this nigga nuts. Every single thing Lonzo posts is like, you know, love being shown. He's got suitors. There was someone today, or a couple people, who suspect, because, not Danny Ainge, because he left. Brad Stevens made a trade with OKC that sent Kemba there, and they took back Al Horford, and I can't remember the other guy's name, and some picks. They cut a lot of cap space, like $19 million. There's a thought that maybe they're going to go and pursue Lonzo Ball. If they do, you know, you don't even know what the core basis of your team is going to be. And I posted on my page, on my Twitter page, Black J Strokes, if you guys don't know. I went back and found the New Orleans Pelicans, you know, in the season recap where Griff was speaking. And one of the things he talked about is they needed IQ, toughness, and three-point shooting. Lonzo is all three of those, plus he's the third leading scorer. So if you lose him, you lose all of those. So my question is, who is the replacement for him? If you're going to, like, it's one thing you got to get the other spots and fill out the roster. Completely understand that. Along with the draft. Completely understand that. But the one guy that exhibits that stuff, you're going to let go? This whole thing is a mess. It's a giant mess. And I guess if Lonzo goes, they're just going to say, all right, now you got the keys. You're third up. All right, Kira, you know, now you got your minutes. And I think they really want to play Kira now, but Stan was like, no, I want to play Eric Bledsoe, you know. So I get it from both sides, but it's way too many moving parts. It's chaotic in New Orleans, and you would have thought that they had some seeming, you know, some seemingly, what's the word I'm looking for here, control over everything that's going on, but they're as chaotic as any organization we've seen in recent memory, you know, from the front office down. And so you're going to have potentially a lot of holes to fill. Along with, if you don't satisfy Zion by bringing Zoe back, of course, that's also Zoe's choice too, and whatever the market is willing to pay. But if you don't bring him back, how does Zion feel? You know, does that further break it down? Miami Heat was linked to BI. And I told you guys, they may be looking to trade him. Let me add something to that, because I didn't mention this in my video, but let me say this, you know, a little while ago. BI was noted to have issues, in particular with Stan Van Gundy, and it's possible he may be being looked at as a rebel because he kind of went from the guy the year before to like an afterthought this year, the second guy, but this is Zion's team. For good reason to some degree. But if he's going to be looked at as a malcontent, another team might be like, he can snoop in and get him. And Miami Heat, we're saying the Miami Heat were linked to have an interest in Brandon Ingram. Now, I told y'all guys, there's a reason he has a trade kicker. And it keeps popping up that teams want him. Why do you think teams want him? Like, for instance, we all know a team would love to have LeBron James, but you don't see LeBron James' name being linked to any other teams. You see what I'm saying? Let me undo this. I hate it when that happens. So, why is Bi's name being thrown out there if everything's cool or they're not looking to trade? For instance, have you heard a team saying they're interested in getting Kevin Durant this offseason? Have you heard a team saying they're interested in getting Steph Curry? The Joker, right? As long as everything is cool and everything is sunshines and daffodils, you're not going to hear anything about another team wanting someone. But the minute that ain't the case, that changes. And I've always said, where there's smoke, there's fire. One of the guys who was substituting for Max Kellerman today said the same thing. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And I've always told you guys this. This stuff is deeper than what we think. For all we know, B.I. may have requested a trade already. Like, we don't know. But Miami has mentioned they got interest in him for some reason. So, is it a possibility, hey, Zion, we'll sign Zoe. We're going to end up trading B.I. for, my suggestion is if, Miami wanted him. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson will sign a trade and 2 first-round picks. I think that'll suffice. Now you got floor spacers. Tyler Hero can knock down shots. He can be another guy to score. Albeit he can't score like B.I. can. But if you factor in you got the shooters, and if you're going to run some point Zion, you're going to have Zoe there and pick and roll and then transition. And those guys could go hit the corners or hit their spots and knock down shots. It's kind of like, okay, you're giving, Zion means to punish teams, and you're giving Lonzo means to punish teams, and you're giving yourself additional spacing and weapons you didn't have the year before. On the other side, it's like you might be giving up Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and first-round picks, but you're getting another starter pair next to Bam who could go get you points, and it'll take some of that pressure off of Jimmy Butler, and you can run your team and your offense around B.I.'s offense. And it'll work for him. And then he's got Jimmy Butler to hold him accountable. And, you got defensive big and Bam Adebayo to close up any deficiencies that B.I. may or may not be, be able to overcome himself. You could basically find an argument to make it work. But, again, we don't know. But for the stuff to be coming out, there's a reason, right? This shit ain't just been popping up because, things are perfect. You know what I'm saying? So there's so much going on. There's so much at stake here. Griff hasn't gotten fired. I'm surprised. I really thought he would be fired. I thought all the stuff that came out would have been damning, but if Gail Benson decided, I guess, that she doesn't mind him fucking up more of her cash flow by getting another offseason, I'm like, okay. But it's funny. I made a video and showed y'all what Griff could have had. Think about this. He had the Lakers trio, the first and the fourth, and Drew Holiday. That's what Griff came into. He came into all of that. And he still has nothing to show for it. Are we going to trust him? He hired a coach that he had to fire. But we going to trust him? He wants a coach that's going to do what he says is going to basically allow him to coach this team and run the team the way he wants. He wants a hand in the rotations and all this other shit. I'm going to take a turn from LeVar. How about you stay in your lane? But to that point, what coach is going to want to come coach when they know Griffin's going to be there and they could be fired the next season because they, did what they want to do and not what Griffin wanted to do? What players are going to want to come play for this team when you got JJ early this year saying, stay the fuck away? Now you hear all this shit about the players upset at the coach. And now you hear about the front office disarray. It's so much going on with this team. Honestly, I really think that the key right now is you should just nuke the entire front office. Trajan Landon. Maybe you keep Swing Cash, but fuck it. Maybe you want to get rid of her too. You just say, fuck it, we finna start all this shit over. And you get a whole new front office, and you go through the coaching search and everything, and you figure that out. But again, you don't have much time. The draft is next month. You need a coach who can figure out what they want to do, and you got to figure out Lonzo Ball. You got to figure out Josh Hart. You bringing him back or not? Like I told you guys, Josh Hart is expendable as fuck because they got Najee Marshall. But you got to figure out Lonzo Ball because that's huge. That is freaking huge. If you don't have Lonzo, or if you don't think you're going to have Lonzo, you got Kira, but you're going to need another point guard. Do you draft or do you trade? That's significant. It's a lot. And if you're asking a coach to come in, they're going to be in the same situation as Stan was, except they're going to get more practice time with these guys and they're going to get a summer league. So the question or the thing we need to be, the organization needs to be figured out is, are we going to keep the front office the same? And if we are, who the coach is. Imperative. Because you got to pick someone that's going to fit with those guys that can lead them. I don't think the Pelicans want to move Zion or Brandon Ingram. And so you need to make sure whoever you get works for them. But if Zion and his family are saying, we want Teaspoon, and he don't get Teaspoon, now, they say winning cures all. If you get a coach and they come in and they set up something and it works and they win and they play for him, Zion would be okay, I think. I think he'll be okay. I think him and B.I. will be like, you know what, fine. It ain't the coach we wanted, but we're winning now. But if you lose Lonzo Ball, if you get a coach they don't like, and you're still not winning, I mean, what do you want? What do you want? I got blocked by a guy last night because we were having a exchange with his pussy ass. And I made the statement because here's the thing. I'm not talking about future years. We're talking about this year, this previous season. If you were going to lose this year and not make the playoffs, you'd been better off tanking. Not like you were far off from tanking anyway. You were in the fucking 11th place, all right? You weren't that far. So, well, Zion was going to get pissed off. He got pissed off regardless. Y'all tried to win and couldn't win. You might as well have tried to get a top 5 pick. And now, you can sit back and say, okay, anybody want... They probably wouldn't trade the 1 unless they got a good player. Or the 2. But 3, 4 through 5? Hey, who wants this pick? You got to eat the Adams or the Bledsoe contract or even both. Some team out there may be willing to do it. Now, Boston in that trade with OKC today did something else. Because now OKC has the opportunity to get 2 top 5 picks potentially. Because they get to get a pick swap with, I can't remember what the other team was with one of the picks that they sent over. But basically, It allows OKC the potential to have 2 top 5 picks. It'd be funny if they got the number 1 and the number 2 pick. I'm just saying. Because they already got SGA. Shea Gilgeous Alexander, who's the cousin of Nickeil Alexander Walker. But, it's funny how this shit just plays itself out. But anywho, Pelicans get a top 5 pick. You could package that, get off some of that contract money, get off the Adams contract or the Bledsoe contract, and get you a decent piece, open up cap space to re-sign Lonzo Ball. Especially if the goal was to keep him, you might be like, okay, if we have to overpay him a little bit, at least we got cap space to do so without compromising Zion in the future. And so now, where do you go from here? Okay, we can re-sign Lonzo. You would already have your coach by now. But now you also can figure out the rest of the roster. But if not, you got to figure out the coaching stuff. You got to figure this stuff out before draft night. Well before draft night. Because that's going to affect stuff. If you're thinking you're going to get Lonzo Ball to re-sign, and you don't, but you go ahead and draft everything else but a point guard or another guard to back up Kira or whatever, or no, you fucked yourself. It's best to go ahead and try to reach out and get that deal done with Lonzo ahead of time. But with Lonzo having incentive to do it based on how he's been treated. And this goes back to probably the bigger point here. There's a reason I opened this video talking about the Gilbert Arenas Dwight conversation. The conversation about, dealings with people. How you treat people matters, man. It really does. And if you treated Lonzo bad and you want to try to shore up and make sure you got Lonzo, because what if a coach that you like says, hey, I'll take this job only if we're keeping Lonzo. I like Zion, I like B.I., but I need to have Lonzo too. He's the point guard I need. That could matter. Because you might sit here and say, okay, we'll work on it. Lonzo, all right, look, we want to hire such and such, but he wants you to be the point guard for this team. What's your amount? Give me 1 second. Let me talk to my agent. What do you think Rich Paul is going to say? All right, Lonzo, check this out. Thank you, but I'm going to explore all of my options this offseason. I've been advised by, tell them you've been advised by me that you're not signing or giving any numbers until free agency starts. Now, the Pelicans have an issue because you have to sit here and think, okay, he's not willing to sit down with us. We're just going to make this a pain in the ass. And this guy wants Lonzo here. It's going to be a problem. They're going to have to go find another coach. And I'm not saying that Lonzo would be a barrier for a coach. I'm just giving you an example of one of many different possibilities. For all we know, it could be like, hey, as long as I got B.I. and Zion, I don't give a fuck about the rest. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of this has the potential to go so many different ways, which is why I said I didn't really want to sit here and try to predict stuff, but I'm just kind of, shooting the shit, giving you what possibility stuff that could be affected. One thing here that happens in June could have a ripple effect that affects something in October. And we don't know that. For instance, assume Lonzo goes to another team. And let's assume that he goes to another team. He puts up 19, 10, and 5. 47% field goal, 43% for 3. If you're a Pelican fan by December, he's putting up those numbers. You're like, why the fuck didn't we keep Lonzo? Why didn't we keep Lonzo? Why did this talent get away? And if let's just assume Pelicans' record is 500 exactly. Let's give them something fair. Let's make it 14-14. I don't think they would have played that many games by the end. Maybe they have. But say 14-14. Let's say Lonzo is on the Bulls putting up those numbers and the Bulls are 20-8. And he is helping carry Zach LaVine and Vooch. Like, they look amazing together, along with Patrick Williams and Kobe White. Like, they look legit. If you're Zion and B.I. and you're only 500 team and you got a decent coach or okay coach and you still had Lonzo on the team and they lost him, at that point, now, like I said, all this stuff is just me shooting the shit. I'm not saying any of this is going to happen. It could go the opposite way. Lonzo could go somewhere, put up the same numbers he did this year, and, the Pelicans could be 28 and never look back. Be like, fuck it, we don't need them. But anything that happens now has a ripple effect and potential to fuck up something in the future or make it better. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. This is getting kind of long. It's over 31 minutes. I don't want to sit here that long and talk to you guys, even though I could forever. Y'all have a good day. Peace.